I've had a bit of a clean up and I've finished a few projects, one of which was tuning up this little bench grinder. My next door neighbour gave it to me as he had no use for it. It's very quiet, but it vibrated like a pig. But I got on YouTube and found videos about balancing it, and you can see I've glued on some balance weights which make it run nice and smooth now. I'm a bit short of room for it, but I've tucked it out the way there. It can be pulled out for use. And now I've decided I'm going to get back on the bows, pull down the nice yew stave from up there and get stuck. It's nice and long, so I've marked it at 80 inches, which is plenty. Marked the centre. What's it say on here? October 2018 from Camberley. You can see it's coarse growth rings, but that won't stop it making a nice bow. Let's just have a look out of interest. There's an inch, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 8 rings per inch, which some people say is terribly coarse. But I know from experience it will do the job. Let's just mark out. You can see we're short of heartwood there, just roughly. Similarly, we'd think about lopping off some of this sapwood, just removing it from the corners. I'll leave plenty of thickness. I think I might make it slightly sort of stiff in the centre and slightly whip-tillered. Don't know, because of the deflex, I might put some reflex onto it. Show you what I mean about removing the sapwood from the corners. What I do is I'll cut it off like that and like that, and then take off the bit in the middle. The danger is if I work from this edge and cut straight across on the bandsaw, you can see, if it was up the other way, I'd cut across. Oh look, plenty of sapwood there. I'd cut across and I'd end up in the heartwood and no sapwood left. So best to nibble away at the corners. I've trimmed a bit off that end with the bandsaw, but decided I'm better off getting a string line down it and reducing the width a bit. Then there'll be less wood to take off. I can do that on the bandsaw. So it's coming down quite clean here. We can see how much width I've got at the end and how the heartwood going around the corner. So when this is narrowed, there'll be a lot less wood to take off the sides. It's coming down quite clean. I'm not taking a huge amount off. I'm just trying to get a clean flat surface so I can mark it out. A bit of discoloration up here, but as I work it down it's looking cleaner and it doesn't feel crumbly or dry. It's quite hard work. It's not as creamy and smooth as some. It's slightly tougher and more rubbery, but it's certainly not crumbly or brittle. So I'll clean that up a bit more, run a string line down it, reduce the width on the bandsaw, then it will just be a bit easier to work. Wondering what was wrong with the workbench, then I realised my trusty bowyer's third hand had been taken off to make room for other stuff, so I've got that back. It was hard work ripping off some of this sapwood. I even resorted to giving the spoke shave a quick lick with an oil stone. Fairly clean surface here now. I've left it a bit scruffy here so you can see how we're working down past that slightly discoloured stuff. But that's now clean enough to mark a nice centre line. And then some rough dimensions. Probably leave it 40mm wide here for most of the length, then narrow it to about 30 bearing in mind it'll only be 12.5. That's millimetres, or half an inch in imperial at either tip. Don't narrow it too much too early, just trying to get rid of some of the bulk. This chunk of old cedar cladding that I'd sawn out to 40mm wide and been slightly flexible. It's handy for a quick mark out. So I just clamped it either end. I'll rule down that and then work off that to narrow the tip slightly. You can see I've put my 40mm slat over to this side so that it corresponds to the crown in the heartwood, rather than centralising it where the heartwood's slipping off there a bit. It only doesn't make a lot of difference, but you might as well cut it out as nicely as you can. Let's run it through the bandsaw. It's looking a bit more like a lump of 2x2 now. I haven't really tapered it at all. I just thought, let's cut it out straight, do one thing at a time. Tons of width. Got tons of depth. It needs quite a bit taken off at the tips, but it's all a bit cleaner, and you can see, like here, the sapwood's looking quite nice. A little bit of that discoloration here, but overall it looks quite promising. I think that could make a bow. That'll do for now. Time for a cup of tea, I think.